Hello and welcome to CIO Live here in ASEAN. My name is Chris Holmes, Editorial Director Asia for CIO, and I'll be your host today. I'm pleased to welcome Xiao Xiong, Deputy Chief Executive GovTech from Singapore, as part of our Leadership Live series, where we talk to tech leaders across the region. So, Xiao Xiong, before we get started on the discussion on AI, maybe you could just share a little bit of your background and how you became a tech leader.
Sure. A bit of my background. I've been around in the industry. I think this year is probably my 29th year. So I've been around quite a bit. And I started off with a computer engineering degree coming out from Nanyang Technological University, a local university here in Singapore. Spent our first couple of years a little bit more formative, like going around different large corporate organizations. Then I struck out in 99 during the dot-com boom, doing a startup for a few years. Sold my startup. Then afterwards, I went into another startup again for another few years, totaling about maybe 9 years or so. And after that, I got a bit tired out of doing startups, and I went into tech companies. I was in Yahoo. I was in HP, running HP Labs in Singapore, and I was also in PayPal for a few years, running a software engineering team here in Singapore. So a lot of software engineering background. That's basically what I do. I was a software engineer who eventually became a software engineering manager. And after about 10 years or so of doing that similar roles in a few tech companies, I was approached to do digital transformation. This was in 2016 for Singapore Power, which is the main power utility in Singapore. Kind of surprised at the invitation, but I took up the challenge, and I went in to do digital transformation. The first few years was pretty okay. Afterwards, I was again asked to run a business, to start and run the business unit, to take some of the stuff that we have built for Singapore Power and bringing it up to the industry. Basically, going out to start a business that's adjacent to the main utility business, and I think we did pretty well. SP Digital was the business unit I started, and we did pretty well for a few years. And afterwards, I was kind of like a bit tired of the corporate world. I wanted to take a break, and I joined our shareholder, Temasek Holdings, and spent some time helping out some of the startups that they were running, and so on. Last year, no, is it last year in February 2023? I was invited again to help out in GovTech, and that's how I landed in my current role today. Yeah, so that's like a whirlwind description of my career.
I mean, you work for a lot of different industries. I mean, it's, and particularly as you say, going from startups to very large multinationals. Again, it must have been very, very exciting and a great learning opportunity.
Yeah, I think I covered the spectrum really, literally. From end to end, right?
Yeah. So again, I mean, and what do you lead now in GovTech? Maybe just give us a quick overview of that.
Sure. I lead this organization called Product and Engineering, which, as the description suggests, it's basically an organization that builds products full of software engineers. I'm going basically back to where I'm the strongest at, which is leading software engineering teams delivering product. And we build products for other government agencies. That's actually the charter for the GovTech, and we built technology to enable agencies and to enable these agencies to deliver their services to citizens and businesses.
Fantastic. And just gives an idea, how big is the organization?
GovTech is probably closer to 4,000.
Okay.
We need probably about 1,005 people in the organization. Not all software engineers, of course, and there's a spectrum again, right? So
Yeah.
we have software engineers, data scientists, product managers, and so on and so forth, designers, and so on.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. That's great. So, I mean, with that, let's get into the main meat of today's conversation, which is around AI. I mean, AI, Gen AI, is top of mind across pretty much every organization I speak to. You know, they've got projects, they're considering, they're thinking, everyone's talking about it. You know, they want to know what are the use cases, what's working, what's not working. Where do you think we are in terms of the current level of adoption and use?
Yeah, so let me talk about AI. AI, it's been around for a long time, and there are different, I would say, different technologies in AI. I mean, it's sort of like an umbrella term, and latest, I suppose, what is termed as Gen AI, has been only around maybe about 2-3 years has really exploded. I really count from the time when ChatGPT came to public knowledge, and that's really the time. And that was just like 2 years ago, in November 2 years ago. It's hardly even 2 years, but it has literally exploded in the industry. Every company has a AI strategy or scrambling to having an AI strategy, and all the tech companies have one anyway, and delivering products today out to the market. It's all very nascent, but at the same time, different AI technologies have been in existence for a long time, like especially computer vision has been around for quite a while and has been doing a lot of good work behind the scenes, because computer vision has been, I would say, one of the mainstays of how we use AI today in production for a lot of places. Of course, the more, I would say, the older technologies in dealing with text, natural language processing, NLP for short, has also been around and been doing a lot of work. I suppose what is popular today in terms of Gen AI is really a form of NLP that's like supercharged, right, in that sense. And it has actually produced very astonishing results. And that has driven a lot of innovation and very enthusiastic adoption of the technology. So I think that's pretty exciting. But at the same time, you know, it's hardly 2 years, right? It's very nascent. A lot of things are still in development. I would say any kind of adoption that we have today, both from a technology company perspective, as well as a user organization perspective, which is, I would suppose GovTech somewhere straddles somewhere between both. We are both a technology organization and a end user organization. I think any use by any of these organizations, including GovTech, is still very much exploratory. We are trying to figure out what we can use with this technology. At the same time, we're very wary about potential dangers. Like any new technology that comes onto the team, we're very, are we actually potentially misusing the technology? Are there any dangers in using this technology such that it will harm our users and harm the people who actually are adopting the technology? So being government, we need to be especially careful, because we are basically taking care of the citizens as well, right, in our businesses and so on. So we need to be very careful in how we use our technology. At the same time, we need to not fall behind, right, because we must make use of any technology that help us to deliver better services for our citizens. So I suppose we are at this age, at this point in time, where we are, you know, trying to do more, but at the same time trying to be very careful about what we're doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of organizations are in that same position. Again, it's sort of just as you said, exploring the proof of concepts there. You know, is it actually going to deliver the required results, but also the safe results that
That's right.
So, I mean, you talked a little bit there about sort of, I mean, again, you know, going from NLP, analytics, AI, Gen AI, and that sort of that whole sort of wave in terms of how the technology has developed. I mean, just coming from a government and a public sector perspective, I mean, what do you see are going to be some of the key use cases going forward for the use of this technology?
Yeah, because I said earlier on, the technology is still evolving, but right now, and we are looking at it from the perspective of where it came from. Because I said earlier on, NLP is a Gen AI is basically a supercharged form of NLP, right? The very term LLM, which is used a lot today, literally means large language model, right? It's a language model, so text and language it forms the biggest part of it, and of course, it's government. We process a lot of text on a daily basis. So this is the perfect match, right? If you look at it from that perspective, there's so much text that we're processing today, um, and the ability for LLMs to actually deal with this text in a very effective way, processing in multiple angles. Either we're talking about summarization, are we talking about generation, are we talking about classification of data? I think all of these finds a different kinds of users within the organization. But there is a lot of potential to go to the next level because we are again talking about multimodal models, and image as well as video are coming into mainstream. As you can see from the industry, there are a lot of multimodal models going out now. So I think there are many such use cases that are simmering in the background. But at this point in time, using the text-based capabilities are basically what is more mainstream using users of Gen AI. So generally, the users revolve around RAG, retrieval augmented generation. It's basically a form of I would say mapping a large language model LLM together with a whole bunch of data, text data, and being able to derive insights from the data, but also be able to generate data, summarize data, to be able to do more things with the textual data that we have. So as we go through a lot of these uh, hackathons and ideathons, and even a lot of internal brainstorming of what are the potential users, somehow or another, they mostly gravitate towards this, right? Like, let me just give you one quick example. Uh, Government gets a lot of feedback from the citizens, and agencies are basically swamped with feedback. Processing it is very, very difficult because it's just a large volume of data. And in the past, you employ a lot of people going through reading and being classifying, be able to respond, right? And sometimes the response is not as fast as it could be. And the citizens can feel frustrated by, I have to wait a few weeks before hearing back from somebody. So this is one perfect example. Many agencies have requirements to that these feedback. We want to gain insights. We want to figure out, which areas the citizens are most concerned about, which are the topics that maybe as the different agencies are busy in their operational work, they might have missed out. So getting insights from feedback is very important, but also being able to generate responses based on the questions and the feedback coming in. How are we able to quickly assemble a response, either as an email or a letter or whatever it is, and going back to the citizen with the appropriate kind of information and so on. That's also very important. So we have a number of similar projects, and so much so that we are now looking at assembling all of them together and into a platform that multiple agencies can reuse. So that's actually something that GovTech does a lot, which is, while we help some of the agencies to build up their capabilities, sometimes we see common capabilities, and we try to extract the requirements, the common requirements, come up with a platform that we can then go back to the citizens, go back to the agencies and help them solve the similar problems in a much more effective and cost-effective and labor-effective basis. Yeah.
Well, very interesting that, because again, I mean, when we start to talk around, almost how do you measure success? I know it's sort of an interesting subject, particularly coming from the government and the public sector perspective, but being able to respond in a very timely manner, and I suppose almost sort of taking, I mean, when you start talking about that idea of a platform, being able to look cross-agency and assemble feedback in a coherent manner, I mean, there's a massive opportunity.
That's right. That's right. And these opportunities are not just Gen AI alone. I think the opportunities are basically looking across agencies, finding commonalities, finding cross-agency commonalities, like a feedback from one agency could be a trigger point for another agency to maybe take a look from another aspect of how can they continue the efforts in assisting the citizen towards a particular goal, right? So the opportunities here are actually tremendous, not just Gen AI alone, but I think across the board, providing platforms that serve all these agencies.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. So, I mean, as part of that journey, I mean, what have been the key learnings that you and your organisation, have learnt, as you've gone through this sort of development and you've explored this new technology?
Yeah, specifically for Gen AI, I think there are a lot of lessons learned. I think a significant part of it has been what not to do, right? Because one thing is when it came about, a lot of people were very keen to say, hey, you know what, there are so many models here, we should have a government model as well. Sort of thought that might be a good idea, but after a lot of discussions, experimentation, and even trying out a little bit to think through this, is that maybe that doesn't really make too much sense, right? There's a lot of investment needed to it. Does government really need something so specialized for itself? And so can we adopt either existing commercial models or even open source models that are out there and available and adapt it to our use cases? Because a lot of these use cases are about inference, not really about training, right? In some cases, we do some fine tuning of the models to adapt it so that it performs a particular task even better. But very often we don't even need to do fine tuning. So I think that's one very important lesson learned. Another very important lesson learned is that these LLMs tend to make mistakes quite often, but they make mistakes in a way that they sound very confident, putting themselves as well, right? So we need to be very careful about the kind of data that we produce and we put in front of the citizens, because we do not want to make false claims, right? We do not want to mislead the citizen down a path where then over time it erodes the trust in the government. So we need to be very careful about the usage of technology, and we try to devise different mechanisms such that we protect ourselves and protect our users from such hallucination with the LLMs. So that's another important lesson learned. There always needs to be safeguards and guardrails such that when we develop such technology, it avoids harm for ourselves. Right? And therefore, we are also looking a lot into responsible AI and ethical AI, and how do we secure the AI such that it does not trigger something that we cannot recover from. So I think a lot of these activities are at a very initial stage at this point in time, but we are actually going quite deep into it.
That's great. That's great. Very interesting. I just want to switch a little bit to the organization structure, and whether, as you've been going down this AI journey, you've had to sort of restructure your teams, rethink the teams, put in place new processes. I mean, how has the organization changed as you've gone down this journey?
Well, I mean, I've been around quite a bit. Since the start of my journey. So I've seen the cycles of technology swing from the left to the right and going all over the place, right? When we very, very early on, when we first started, there was all green screens and mainframes, and that's client server, right? To a dumb client, super intelligent server. Then we went to desktops where we have a bulkier, much more intelligent clients, and the servers become like dumb repositories of data. That's one swing. And then it swung back, right? When the age of web applications and all the processing, all the intelligence slowly crept back to the server. And then, of course, when the smartphones came about, there are more apps running on your phone now. Your smartphone literally could potentially be a supercomputer running a lot of stuff today. And it sort of swung back. And of course, that swing is still going back and forth and so on. So over time, of course, organizations change and adapt according to the technology, but it also changes according to the needs. But as somebody who has seen through a lot of these changes in industry, in the technology, there's always this constant about it's a technology, and it's about how we as intelligent, creative human beings, how do we use the technology and not let the technology drive us in that sense. So having said all that, what I'm trying to say is that in terms of organization, we are not really changing too much. We are not changing. Obviously, we need to adapt to the technologies. I think mindsets need to change, but we are not changing so much in the organization. But at the same time, the new technologies, especially in Gen AI, is actually fundamentally changing the industry itself. So for example, if you look at AI code assistance, things like GitHub Copilot, and many of the other tools that are out there, I think almost every single tech company that I know of have their own variation of tool, and even like Meta came out with CodeLlama open source, the stuff, right? So the increasing adoption of such tools, which help developers, software engineers to develop software, actually will change the way, not only the way we code, but the way we structure software development teams themselves, right? Do we then need such large teams, or should we be going to a smaller team? How do we deploy such tools such that it can help the engineers be more productive and deliver things faster, more securely, and so on and so forth? I think a lot of those questions are still unanswered today. And as part of our organization, we are exploring how these impact us, but we're also looking at the industry as well. How are the other people in the industry, other organizations in the industry, how are they actually adopting to it? So it's going to be pretty exciting time in the industry itself, but we are actually quite keen to see, how things are changing and how can we also adapt ourselves to it. Having said that, as I mentioned earlier, this does not mean there's going to be a fundamental change because of this technology per se. We are changing how we are organizing ourselves. I would say it is again going to be an evolution depending on how the tools evolve and how the technology evolves. Then we need to adapt according to it.
Very interesting. And again, I think, there's still a lot of conversations around, how it is going to impact the IT organization going forward. I want to come back. I mean, you talked earlier on a little bit about hackathons, and I know, you've recently shared a hackathon with the Prime Minister of Singapore. I mean, can you just share a little bit more about, what you see as the key purpose of actually running these hackathons?
Yeah, I think hackathons, I've been involved in hackathons for many, many years, right? When I was running Yahoo Southeast Asia, the software engineering team in the late 2000s, 2008 or so, I was really running hackathons in Yahoo, for Yahoo. Even like a global hackathon, right? I brought hackathon participants all the way to Sunnyvale in US to participate in hackathons. So, and I've seen a lot of hackathons in different ways and forms over the years. Ultimately, the idea of hackathons, it's an outlet, it's a creative outlet, because we do need to actually come by to creating new ideas. But how do we actually get these ideas? We can either say, look, everybody down tools, and then we go to a corner and then we start thinking about it. But that usually doesn't happen so well because we still need to produce work. So while potentially some can do this, if it is a much smaller team, in a larger organization, we normally try to dedicate maybe part of the team to do this. So there are different forms of doing it, like maybe we have a research organization, we have an innovation team, and so on and so forth. But one of the mechanisms is allowing a larger base of software engineers, technical folks, give them some time, pair them up with users, potential people who need such help, and hopefully sparks will fly, and we will be able to come up with something that's useful that we can eventually take out as products that we can benefit the larger organization, right? So that's really fundamentally the idea of a hackathon. There are different variations of it. Of course, there's people who just look. I don't really actually want to develop software. I just want the ideas, so the ideathons and so on. They hackathons traditionally are 24 hours, so 24, 48 hours. But there has been hackathons that have grown to a much longer time. Instead of getting people to stay overnight and so on, we sort of like grow to say a week, 2 weeks, some to extreme a month, for example, and get people to work on it, just these hackathon ideas, and deliver up to a varying degree. Because obviously overnight there's a limit to how much you can develop. Within a month you can do things a little bit more polished. So I think in general that's what hackathons are.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I know we're coming to the end of our time here. I mean, and I'm afraid I've saved probably the longest question to last, but I'm going to ask you for a very short answer. I mean, what does the future hold in the use and adoption of AI?
It's a very, very tough question, I'm afraid, Chris, because I don't think anybody really knows today, not the creators of AI, not the users of AI, and certainly not me. Right, I don't really know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think it is definitely very exciting that things are moving into various directions now. Obviously, what started off as a souped up, hyper boosted version of NLP, now it has gone to a lot of different areas. Like we are talking about images, we're talking about video. There's a different multimodal. But I think we are looking at many different areas that could adopt similar ways of doing things as well. But at the same time, I think beyond that, the very fundamental, very fundamental algorithm that triggered all these new Gen AI stuff, the transformer model that came out in 2017 in a paper called "Attention is All You Need." That is evolving as well. I think a lot of people are looking at, can we come up with the next transformer model? Can we come up something with, and I think that triggering point will probably go all over the place. And that is super exciting, because if we have something equivalent to a transformer model in the next coming 1-2 years, we can potentially see another explosion in another like 5 to 8 years, right? So that is super exciting. And I think that is probably what we are looking at. Of course, in the meantime, while all the, I would say, research is being done on that, us engineers are having a ball now creating new stuff and figuring out creative ideas and how we can take this technology to the next level.
That's great. Xiaoxiong, thank you so much for sharing your journey today and your experience in AI. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. That concludes today's CIO ASEAN interview. My name is Chris Holmes, and I've been talking to Xiaoxiong from GovTech Singapore. If anybody's got any questions or comments, please reach out to me on LinkedIn.